Assalamu alaikum.
Welcome to the What Time Is It Dude podcast.
So, today we're gonna talk about both of our backgrounds of what we believe, so that there's a little bit of a framework as we talk about different topics to know what our general background and beliefs are.
Yeah, Peter, you can start.
Sure. Yeah. So basically, I am a Christian, Protestant evangelical Christian. I attend a Baptist church, but basically, should I explain? Go into my full?
Yeah, I think you should do
okay.
that.
So, I'd say my core beliefs are that the world is been affected by sin, where it's in a broken state. That we're born into a state of sin. There's sin reigning in the world, so we're corrupt. People not that people are completely bad and all evil, terrible people. We're created in God's image, so we still have the dignity and the image of God that gives value to every human life, and still has that reflection of God's goodness. But because when sin entered the world, it's in a state of brokenness and corruption, and there's sin within all of us. And so basically, I believe that God has been working a plan of redemption throughout all human history to restore the world, to redeem people, to save them from sin. And I believe basically that plan isn't fundamentally something that's accomplished through religion, in the sense of any kind of external rituals or following, doing certain external things, or even our redemption doesn't come through good works themselves, but that God sent his son Jesus into the world to take on human flesh. So it's called the incarnation, that God becoming flesh, becoming man. And then he lived a perfect life where he perfectly fulfilled God's law. And then he died as a sacrifice, so that whoever would believe in him would receive his perfect life and his righteousness, and have a completely right and justified status before God, and that he would unite people to himself. So I believe through faith in Jesus that we can be united to God. We can walk in fellowship with him, and he'll actually give us our spirit to produce the fruits of righteousness in us. But I think to wrap it up, there's a verse that I think kind of resonates, or is the basic testimony of every Christian, and it's from a letter that Paul wrote in Titus that says, "For we ourselves were once foolish, disobedient, led astray, slaves to various passions and pleasures, passing our days in envy and malice, hated by others and hating each other. But when the goodness and loving kindness of God our Savior appeared, he saved us, not because of works done by us in righteousness, but according to his own mercy, through the washing of regeneration and the renewal of the Holy Spirit. He poured out on us the Holy Spirit, and basically called us to be heirs of eternal hope." So basically the idea, we ourselves, that's the thing that every Christian can say, is, I myself was foolish, disobedient. I was enslaved to my sin. I was trying to find meaning in life and hope in my own way, and then God entered into the picture and saved me out of that. So that's pretty much my core belief.
Where's the mystery? I mean, you said everything already about your belief, right? You should have kept at least a little hidden, but no, you said everything. I'm Kurar. I'm an Iraqi, and I'm a Muslim. I'm a Shia Muslim, which is different than Sunni, which is usually what's when you hear Muslim, that's your first thought is Sunni Muslims and their beliefs. But I'm a Shia Muslim, which is different than Sunnis in many ways. More ways than you would think they are, even though we tend to say we're brothers. We are brothers. but there's significant differences between us in history and in our beliefs, core beliefs, and our actions in the world. My core beliefs are I follow God. In Arabic would be Allah, but Allah means the God. It's the same thing. We believe in one God. There's only one God, and I believe that with good work, we can reach higher states of being and getting to heaven with our good deeds. And every human sins, yet God is merciful, and His mercy encompasses all of us. So His mercy would lead to remove our sins. And Peter said that we came into the world like with full of sin, but I believe we come into this world more as gifts to the world. We come in a blank state, and as we do good, it's like an internal battle of good and bad within us, where we sin, but then we do good, and we pray to God, we ask God for mercy, and the sin is removed. And we might sin again, but we try our best to not sin. We don't say every time you sin, God is going to forgive you. God also has the limit of what He's going to forgive if you constantly sin the same thing again. Just ask God for forgiveness. But we always hope for God's mercy, because that's the greatest mercy. The greatest being ever would always be more merciful than us humans and anyone else you would ever know. So that's my core beliefs in terms of God. And then I believe that Jesus and Moses and Solomon and almost every prophet that was mentioned in the Bible, the Old Testament and the New Testament, are prophets of God that are, I think we've mentioned this before. We can also talk about how the podcast came to be, but me and Peter, we met together and we were talking. We would just sit and debate for like hours, and it was like every week, every Friday we would do that. So we would discuss different topics we would just come with them spontaneous. We aren't like actual perfect, we are actual religious researchers. We are just, this is just our passion, a side passion that we have. And most of us, discussing stuff, we're going to have mistakes. We're going to, you can fact check us as much as you want, because we probably have a lot of mistakes when we say stuff. But we try to bring, the picture of the normal man in our religion, how the normal person perceives, like how we actually live our lives, instead of what the media shows and what, the top religious leaders live like this. But what do actually, the normal guy, the normal man would live his life within the boundaries of this religion. And we're also hoping to have like different kind of guests that some will be religious leaders, others would just be normal people that are part of our religions, and they will just discuss, or maybe even different religions or atheists, and we would just be discussing stuff. And even if we have like a topic for an episode, it won't be like this is the topic that we're going to talk about this whole episode. We probably will go to like different, very, very different topics. Like 1 second we would be talking about Jesus, the next second we'd be talking about like some kind of history fact from the Romans that isn't even related to religion. We won't be like talking about one thing at all.
Yeah, as when we started doing our discussions, that was kind of the funny thing of the process. We'd start maybe with one like question, and then we would end up on a completely different topic hours down the road. But basically, our goal is to learn from each other about our beliefs, and two, we want to, obviously, we both believe, like what we believe for a reason. So we both think that's true, or else we wouldn't believe that. So we're passionate about sharing what we believe, but we also want to learn from each other to have more nuance in understanding what each other believes. And we also want it to be an opportunity for anyone who's seeking or exploring religions or spirituality, or just looking at those topics, that they can have the perspective of not just a Christian perspective, not just an Islamic perspective, but they can hear people talking about it. And yeah, like Karar said, we're not like scholars, we're not a philosopher, since we're not theologians, we are passionate about these topics, but it's not gonna be. Yeah, you can definitely fact check, and it's gonna be have a more of a casual vibe. So.
We're just two guys talking about it. Like, we're not gonna be very, we're not gonna give you dates and this happened this exact date this year. We will probably have like a lot of mishaps in what we're saying and everything. Especially me, I tend to always like follow logic more so than what I've actually read, and I try to abstain from reading like theology or philosophy books just so I can have my own framework of thought before I absorb something else. So that would tend to me like not having like the obvious view on topics, but everyone makes mistakes, and that's what we're going through, is that everyone makes mistakes. You discussed about about our beliefs and stuff. What do you think is a belief? Like, what is a religion?
Well, I guess kind of like you said, well, with religion, this is obviously something that we're adhering to, or that we believe that is a set of like historic traditions and beliefs. So like both Christian and Islam have a very long tradition and history of like people holding to certain core beliefs, and it's like for the most part, like those core beliefs are unchanged or are passed down through generations. But I think like just in general, like I think that everyone has a belief. Like if everyone has a worldview, and your worldview is what you believe about the world, what you think is true, what you've observed, what you've learned, what you've heard that you can confirm or with your own logic and your own like rationality. And so I think that everyone has, because humans, we have the rational capacity, and we are rational, but we're not purely rational creatures. We don't know, nobody lives and operates their life on a purely evidential, observation-based like rationality. We all have a worldview that we believe that includes elements of observed truths and elements of like things that are that we basically put our faith in to some extent. And so I think everyone has beliefs. Yeah.
What about religion? Do you believe like everyone has their own religion?
I think that like this is an interesting topic, because I think that obviously when you say religion, you're thinking one of the like the more formal like Orthodox religions that has a long historical tradition. But in the same sense that everyone has like faith, I think there's a way in which like all human beings start to build religious elements, as in elements of ritual or certain ways of practicing their beliefs and their worldview. So I think like there's lots of examples of non-religious or even like atheist. Like you can take the like Marxism in Russia in the like early 20th century, and that became like a kind of religion, even though the premise is a materialist worldview without a god. They erected, like they had like heroes of their faith and statues that had almost a mystical like
atheism, and it's like, to me, how it's like the belief that there's no God doesn't mean that it's not a belief in itself. It's like you're having faith. Faith is also an interesting topic as what faith is. But atheists also have faith. Their faith is that there's no God. That's their faith. That's what they're believing in. And people tend to say, no, we aren't a religion, whatever. Sorry, I have a cough. It's been going on for like 2 weeks now. But atheists tend to believe in stuff. Like any kind of place you would go to, there's always a religion, even if we don't tend to call it a religion. Just because this, like Peter mentioned, the way people live and the way they practice their beliefs in the world that they absorb. When you absorb from the environment, you give back to the environment what the knowledge and whatever you gained, you just give it back in whatever rituals, whatever you do. That is actually like the same way that you were affected by your environment, you're affecting others. And I think that's the major point of the religion. It's like whatever practice or whatever belief, ideology that you follow, you're actually just a follower of that ideology until you're just practicing, you're just giving back to what that ideology gave you. And I think that's one of the important things where, and it's also why there's a lot of misconceptions about Christianity and Islam and most, religions that are, Hindu, Buddhist, whatever. Because we understand that when you're following a religion, you're going to do what that religion, is telling you to do. But we tend to forget that everyone is human. They make mistakes and they don't actually always follow their religion. They tend to, ignore parts for their own desires. Mm-hmm. And because we sin. So people tend to just ignore the fact that even if I have my own, I follow Islam. A lot of people follow Islam and say they're Shia or Sunnah. But then they have their own kind of set of beliefs. Like they cherry pick what to believe in and what not to believe in. But they still consider themselves Muslims. But I don't think everyone that says they're Muslims or Shia is actually, should be put in that camp. Because it just defeats the purpose of having a religion to just not follow it in the way that it already is.
Yeah, and I think that people in our culture and younger generation has like a more mistrust or like bad experience with the idea of religion. And that's why a lot of people, I don't think, want to identify as religious or want to move away from like adhering to a religion and just like this more individualistic, like I'll just kind of like I'll navigate myself and find what works for me, like find what like I see, and basically everyone should do that individually. And part of the mistrust or the negative view of like religion is perhaps like a mistrust of institutions. And it's like, okay, this, you can look back at history and be like, well, at one point this church did this, or the Crusades happened, or there's these horrible things that are associated with religion, or you see it as a human institution, which, being human, is subject to be, very misused, abused, and corrupted.
And an important thing to always remember is like the leaders and like kingdoms or that followed those religions. You have to remember those were greedy people. There's a reason why they enslaved people and became, kings and everything. Even though religion in itself, most religions are like, you shouldn't treat people that way, even though they did treat them. I think that's like the biggest pointer and marker to the fact that they aren't actually following their religion, be it in Christianity or Islam. It's like if you can't just say, oh, this person did this bad thing, then the religion accepts it. No, it's Imam Ali, the cousin of Muhammad. He has a really nice saying. He says, don't find the person and say he's, the truth and whatever he follows is the truth. But find the truth and you will find that person. So don't look at, say, oh, this person is the truth or the, statue of this religion. And then whatever he does, that means the whole religion follows. That's just a very basic view of what religion, in fact, what every belief for, in the world would seem. Like even for me, whatever belief someone has, if I just see an example and then say, oh, everyone believes in that, that's just a very basic, very not very smart way to look into the world and just view people. Because after all, even if we have views, every single one of us is different in his own way.
And I think, like you said, the people who are in powerful positions and enslaving people or starting wars, whatever, that is predictable in a way that's just like the human tendency for greed and for power. And I think that we've seen that pretty much from all of human history, from the beginning until currently. Right now we see it all over the world. That is just the political state of the world, of people trying to grab power. And I think so many people in so many points of history have taken religions and used them as a political tool to basically, it's just a tool that they're using to accomplish the same end of control and power and oppressing people. But I think at the end of the day, as much as like there's this shift in our culture and this desire to like disassociate with religion, I think like the idea that me and Kara have been talking about is just that like maybe as much as we want to move away from religion, it's kind of built into us as humans that we have beliefs and we seek to live out our beliefs. We want to like practice. We want to live in a way that's consistent with our worldview, and we want to, and that's not just the essence of religion alone. But I think we like to build like structure or religious elements into our lives.
Yeah, a system to live in, and I think we've also discussed it when in our meetings that every one of us has their own morality, but at the core of it, there's an essence. There's a core morality that everyone can agree on. We tend to say no. There's like some stuff that you won't agree on, but we can all agree on that killing someone is bad. We can all agree on that, even though some people are going to say, no, there's like psychopaths that won't agree on that, but they're psychopaths. Like, that's the point. They're mentally ill.
Mm-hmm.
They're like not neurodivergent. They're different than the normal majority of people. But the majority of people would agree that killing someone is bad, that stealing something that isn't yours is bad. There is a moral compass within us that tells us what is wrong and what's not wrong. And then there's also, even though we know something is wrong, we still do it. And that's sin. Sin, I think the biggest sin is when you know something is wrong and doing it. In fact, in Islam, God says that the scariest, the most, unlucky people are the people, the knowledgeable people, because they know stuff and they would sin. So their sin will be bigger because they knew that they did something wrong and still did it. So their sin is bigger than, someone that doesn't know this is wrong and still doing it. Because God would forgive him because God judges everyone based on their own mind. And back to the topic of, psychopaths and mentally ill people, I think God would also judges someone based on what their framework, their brain, like biology was, set. And God wouldn't just say, like in our own judges and political system, in our judicial system, we have that judges, there's like a mental illness, we be more lenient on them and don't judge them as harshly. And God would obviously know if someone is actually mentally ill and if someone isn't. So he would be more lenient on people that are that sin because they had less knowledge or because they were just not able to have that knowledge or accept it because of other factors that wasn't in their control. I don't know how, Christianity views it in a different way.
I think there is a very strong shared principle here, though, that both, like, going back to the original point you're making of, like, that Christian and Islam, it's both believe that our God gave us, created humans with a conscience as a guide, that we know these things right and wrong. And it's also in the Bible the same idea of, like, yes, if you have more knowledge, like, you'll be held to a higher standard if you know what is right to do and you don't do it. Like, that's sin. So God will judge according to what each person has been given. But I also think I've never understood the psychopath argument, just of like, well, as an exception to like a universal moral compass written on our hearts, because the whole idea of like mental illness or like some kind of like a disease will be that there's lots of cases where people's perception because of that illness it's very clearly not like, it's not real, it's not according to the world. And so like I don't think that the lack of perception of that reality, like for a moral issue, it's the same as like if somebody is seeing something that's not there, like that doesn't, the fact that I think that people have can't see that, or there may be exceptions. I don't think that rules that out.
I mean, like psychopaths. I think psychopaths. I'm not really sure on this, but from what I've looked at, psychopaths tend to know like this is wrong. They still know this is wrong, but they still do it because they don't have sympathy or empathy or anything like that. Yeah. So they don't. Or the only thing they fear is consequences. They're like, if I do this, will I, get caught? If they have a chance to do something without getting caught, they would do it.
Yeah. And
that's mostly what happens. They would do something, and I guess that was a fumble from my side. Psychopaths aren't a good example of this because they still know that something is wrong. Because like mentally they don't have like that moral compass though. Like in their head, they don't know this is wrong. They just understand that society considers this wrong. So they can understand that. But they can't, act upon it. But like other psychotic mental illness where they hallucinate, where, they hallucinate. Like there's a guy that would hallucinate. He would be talking to someone, and now like the way he checks if this is actually a real person, he would open up his camera to see if that person is actually real. So people like that, like they might think someone is not real and attack them, and which doesn't happen a lot. It's not actually documented as happening a lot, but it can happen. I don't believe these people should be left out from society or anything like that. But is there a possibility of it happening? And back to the religious topic about it, those kind of people who would think this is a hallucination, I think God would be more understanding in a way. Personally, my own view about God, like outside of religion, and I'm sure a lot of Muslims believe that God is very kind. I think Christians also like the loving, the amount of love God has for us. I think one of my favorite Quran verses is like God says, Ya hasratan ala al-ibad. That means, I think it's in Surah Yasin. That means God is like sighing, or he's like, it's like I sigh for my followers, or for my creation, pretty much. And that just shows the amount of love God has for us and how much He wants us to do good. He doesn't want to throw us in hell. He wants any kind of way to make sure that we do not go to hell. He does not want us to be in hell. He doesn't want to hurt us. I think that's one of the, a lot of people follow religion in fear of hell or in greed of heaven. And that's also something I mentioned about Ali. He's like, I don't follow God in greed of heaven or in fear of hell, because greeding for heaven is just businessman. You're just a businessman. You just want the reward. Or being a slave where you're just afraid of hell, so you pray to God. But I found God as the best. He's like my creator. I need to follow what He says. I think that's the best kind of religion, the best kind of belief is following something not out of a motivator. There's no motivation, be it fear or reward, but it's just actual understanding of the essence of God and why we should, follow Him.
Right. Like, a lot of people have the idea that heaven is the amazing place you want to get to for the, like, pleasures or whatever that you will experience there. But the whole idea is that if you could have heaven without God, it would be like hell, because that's what God is the source of every good gift. Every good gift points to Him, but it's ultimately our souls are created to have joy in Him and in knowing Him. And Christianity also has that idea of, it says in 1 John, God is love, and it basically says God's love is demonstrated by self-sacrifice. There's no greater love than someone lay down his life for his friends, and love for enemy, because it says even a good person can love somebody who's kind to them, or love a righteous man. But God showed His love in that while we were still sinners, still His enemies, He laid down His life to save us. So, I think we're getting close to we should probably wrap up this first episode. But I think some of the topics we're wanting to cover down the line are like we want to go through some objections that people might, like an atheist or non-religious person might have to the idea of God. Like, why is there evil and suffering in the world if there's a good, all-powerful God, or different topics like that. And we want to each share, like, well, this is how, as a Christian, I would respond to those questions, and Qurar, as a Shia Muslim, how he would respond to those questions. And then, various other topics.
Yeah, we might also have, sometimes we'd be talking about religion, or we'd be talking about Iraqi culture, or because Peter is very interested in that. So we might, just be switching topics so don't come into the episode thinking, oh, they're going to talk about this and only this. No, we probably are going to get sidetracked. Like, we've already got sidetracked many times.
Yeah.
Like, we'd be talking about
I wasn't expecting to be talking about psychopaths.
Yeah. We just changed the topics very fast. So I think we should wrap up this one. So see you in the next one. Bye.